Hurricane Helene hit the Gulf Coast last Friday, and the devastation has been brutal. There's nothing fun or funny about what these people are going through. But if there's anything worth making fun of, it's the people in charge of the response. And that's these three. So let's meet our team of disinterested babysitters one by one. First, the big guy. On Monday, he was asked about the storm in a press conference.
On the hurricane, Mr. President, why weren't you and Vice President Harris here in Washington commanding this weekend?
I was commanding. I was on the phone for at least 2 hours yesterday and the day before as well. I command. It's called a telephone.
Great, I already feel sorry for the hurricane victims. Now I feel sorry for the guy who had to talk to Joe Biden on the phone for 2 hours. Word on the street is that he got through 3 whole sentences. Then on Wednesday, Biden did what he called an aerial tour of western North Carolina, otherwise known as a flyover. And he was asked about the devastation again last night.
What are the states in the storm zone? What do they need after what you saw today?
Oh, in the storm zone?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what storm they're talking about. They're getting everything they need. And they're very happy across the board.
Yeah, it's bad that he couldn't remember the storm, but I guess his memory's so bad now that he thinks storms are good. I know the Democrats think they're untouchable, but I doubt they can survive coming out as pro-hurricane. But what do I know? Next up, Kamala. Unlike her predecessor, Mike Pence, Kamala hasn't had a single hurricane season briefing. But I get it. Why sit in a boring briefing when you can sit in a Barbie dream house with Lance Bass and Leslie Jones? Once the storm hit, she did post a photo of herself. Blank pages, phone cord not plugged in, looking more sleepy than sad or busy. I've seen more convincing I'm working faces on a Jack Russell Terrier. Don't worry, folks, he's on it. But I don't know if I'd feel much better if the page wasn't blank. Look at that, people of North Carolina. She wrote something down, no doubt practicing her President Kamala Harris signature, like a 6th grade girl with a crush. That day she did visit another disaster area, the border, her second visit ever. So now she's been to the border as many times in her life as J.D. Vance has in the last 8 weeks.
And I haven't been to Europe.
Okay. She was at the border wall for a little under 20 minutes. I, for one, have waited longer for an Uber. Then again, she did have important work to get back to. And last of the three, DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. He said that FEMA won't have enough money for this year's hurricane season. Why? Because they spent it all on migrants. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, allocated nearly $364 million in the fiscal year 2023 and $650 million for the 2024 fiscal year to the Shelter and Services Program to provide humanitarian services to non-citizen migrants following their release from the Department of Homeland Security, according to the government's website. Yikes. That's like your dad coming to you and saying, "Kids, things are a little tight this month. I gave my last few paychecks to the neighbor kid who steals your lunch money at the bus stop. Oh, and the rest went to my secret family in Alaska." But the left has been quick to remind us that Trump also used FEMA money on migrants. But that money went to detain and repel migrants, whereas this guy is using it to give them each an apartment in the Statue of Liberty. You might be wondering why the Federal Emergency Management Agency is doing such a bad job managing an emergency. Well, they're just following their stated goals. Here are their top priorities according to their website. Goal 1. Instill equity as a foundation of emergency management. Goal 2. Lead whole of community in climate resilience. Goal 3. Promote and sustain a ready FEMA and prepared nation. Yes, emergency preparedness is number 3 in their list of priorities, right after equity and climate resilience. Of course, you don't have to read their 3 goals to know that. You just have to read Conquest's 3 laws. Hey, remember when the Pentagon found $300 million to send to Ukraine? We'd already sent $100 billion, but we shook the couch cushions till we found more. So we all know that if they wanted to, they could find the money for disaster relief. Heck, whatever happened to Bob Menendez's gold bars? But they don't want to. So it's no surprise that people have to take matters into their own hands. This guy spent days flying rescue ops in North Carolina and says the feds are nowhere to be seen. This guy has also been flying rescue missions and was threatened with arrest if he continued. Though he should know better than to save lives without a license. Best to leave this to the professionals.
Wendy paying $500 a day for working for FEMA.
Hit you with the bleak. Hit you with the tricks.
So while those ladies get $500 a day to dance at a gas station Cinnabon, Biden and Harris have promised one-time payments of $750 to the hurricane victims. May seem stingy, but how else are we going to afford to send $21 billion to Taliban-run Afghanistan? So the response has been embarrassing, but heaven forbid people notice. Trump brought it up at a couple of rallies, and these were the headlines that followed. Trump politicizes Helene response in Georgia visit. The View hosts slam Trump for politicizing Helene. GOP is brain dead. Trump drags Hurricane Helene Helene into the election campaign. Never mind that Trump brought truckloads of supplies to help these people, and that he went down before either the president or the vice president. But this is nothing new. Remember when Trump threw a roll of paper towels to some Puerto Ricans? They did a whole news cycle on it. John Oliver mentioned it on his show this week. Same thing when Trump visited Ohio after a train derailment and gave out water bottles with his name on them. They're mad because Trump looks good and they look bad. It's hard to maintain narrative control when their opponent is doing more as a private citizen than they're doing with all the levers of power. It really does come down to that famous heat map you're always seeing on Twitter. They love the things that are furthest away from them, while normal people love their families, neighbors, and friends. The left doesn't want to solve problems. They want to maintain power. They're in the awkward position of trying to create a new voting base while the current one is still around. They're serving who they see as their future constituents. Get them in, get them housed, and get them voting. But the Americans are still here. They're going through it, but they're still here. And if the government won't help the Americans, then the Americans are going to have to help each other, which may be better in the long run.